Never confront your stalker in a locked room. A tired nurse bursts into a Mafia war room to yell at the man following her, only to realize he's the boss of the city's deadliest syndicate. Seconds later, the windows explode in a hail of bullets. Her normal life is over, and the only man who can keep her breathing is the one who just kidnapped her. Step into the suffocating silence of midnight, a stillness broken only by the cold click of a loaded weapon. Serena Vale walked into that room, a single heartbeat surrounded by a pack of wolves. She believed she was writing her own story, marching into the lair of Luca Varelli, the absolute master of the city streets. But the underworld trades entirely in blood and consequence. 12 bosses sat sweating through their tailored suits, while Luca remained perfectly motionless, a monument carved from raw violence. Today, you and I are going to unpack this shadow play together. There is a quiet lesson hidden here. Never walk into a room unless you understand exactly who holds the keys to the doors. We are about to witness how deep a vendetta grows when watered with arrogance. The room froze when Luca delivered a quiet, terrifying promise. The first woman to walk through those doors, he murmured, belonged entirely to him. Nobody dared to breathe. His loyal shadow whispered that they were alone, but Luca simply let a knowing smile touch his lips. He was playing an invisible game while the others merely stared at the board. Then the doors swung open. Serena stood in the frame. She wore wrinkled hospital scrubs marked by a coffee stain, yet she commanded the space like an absolute monarch. Her gaze swept the shadows without a trace of fear. This is a profound truth we often forget. True power never relies on a tailored suit or a violent reputation. Real authority is built entirely on the unshakable way you choose to hold your ground. 12 enforcers instinctively reached for their hidden steel, yet Serena refused to blink. She locked her fierce gaze directly onto the Don, her voice slicing through the tension as she accused him of stalking her. She demanded he step out of the shadows, calling out the dark sedan circling her apartment. The raw courage it took to confront that room was staggering. While killers held their breath, she remained rooted to the floor, driven by exhaustion and annoyance. This teaches us a vital lesson about navigating our own dark moments. Sometimes marching directly into the jaws of your greatest fears is the only way to strip away its control over you. The heavy silence stretched out as the room waited for Luca to destroy her, but she never once looked away. There she stood, gripping a cheap taser as if it were a sword, threatening the most lethal predator in the city. Luca finally rose from his chair, a towering silhouette of Slaw marked by a jagged scar across his jaw. His voice was a heavy rumble as he confessed he had been waiting for her. Serena fired back without hesitation, labeling it a twisted obsession, and spun around to walk away. She declared that this dark chapter was closed, but Luca sent his words chasing after her, cold and absolute, and stating that their story had not even begun. This reflects a bitter reality we must all face. You can turn your back on the ghosts of your past, and you can try to outrun your deepest problems, but eventually the shadows will catch up and demand a final reckoning. The room grew suffocating as the true nightmare unfolded. Luca leaned forward, perfectly reciting a cryptic voicemail she received 2 weeks ago. She had brushed it off as a wrong number. He repeated the exact chilling phrase about a package still being in play. Serena tried to mask her panic, her voice shaking as she threatened to call the police. The crime boss simply watched her with a hollow stare. He softly reminded her that the officers she wanted to summon were on his payroll, and the concrete beneath her feet belonged to him. Let this serve as a quiet warning. We must never ignore the strange anomalies in our daily routines. Those easily dismissed red flags are often the distant sirens of approaching ruin. She was completely trapped inside his violent web. Just as Luca softly murmured that she was not his yet, the world tore apart. The heavy windows exploded into a shower of glass as rival assassins rained hellfire into the room. In mere seconds, the quiet meeting dissolved into a deafening bloodbath. Yet, instead of diving for his own preservation, the ruthless Don threw his massive frame directly over Serena. He transformed into a living shield of muscle and bone against the flying lead, gripping her wrist to drag her through the storm of gunfire. This explosive moment reveals a cold, undeniable truth about human loyalty. You never truly know who is willing to bleed for you until your world is burning to the ground. In a matter of seconds, the very monster she feared the most had become her only surviving lifeline. They bolted through the opulent hallways, the deafening echoes of men falling behind them. Luca dragged her into a concealed steel panic room, slamming the industrial bolts shut, Chassel them inside a glowing tomb of monitors. Serena was hyperventilating, unraveling as she begged to understand why this was happening. When Luca softly spoke her father's name, she snapped that her dad had passed away 6 months ago. The heavy denial in that space is something you can almost taste. It highlights a devastating reality we must all learn. Closing your eyes to a painful truth never erases it. It only ensures the blow will completely destroy you when it finally breaks your door down. Luca simply turned his back, rapidly typing at the screens while bullets hammered the steel walls outside. Stick with me, because you and I are about to uncover the kind of secret that fractures a person's mind. Luca stopped typing, looked Serena in the eyes, and tore her reality to shreds. He revealed that her quiet father was never just a mundane accountant. He was the most brilliant money launderer for the deadliest syndicate on the coast. For 15 years, he buried the Mafia's dark sins, and just before his death, he stole their ultimate insurance policy. Her safety and her grief were entirely built on a massive lie. It is a haunting realization. The people we love the most are often the ones casting the darkest shadows. Sitna's legs simply sacral gave way beneath her. The gentleman who raised her had spent his life washing millions in the blood of the innocent.
The tragedy of her innocence is heartbreaking. Dante Casimir, a rival boss who paints the streets red, has spent 6 months tearing the city apart, looking for this missing ledger.
At the center of this storm sits Serena, weeping, swearing her father only left her an empty apartment. But Luca calmly reveals the cruelty of the trap. That random voicemail she ignored was a dead man's switch. Because her father failed to check in, the timer finally ran out. Dante now believes she holds the keys to his empire. This is a harsh lesson for the midnight hours. Ignorance is never a shield when you find yourself dancing with wolves. Predators simply do not care about your innocence. Serena tearfully pleads her truth, and, against all odds, the violent Don actually believes her. His voice drops to a dark rumble as he warns her about Dante. The rival will strip her apart piece by piece, just to hear her scream and discard her anyway. Serena glares through her tears, asking if Luca is any different. He offers a sad, hollow smile, admitting he is far worse. But a true leader honors his debts. Her father once saved his life before destroying it, and Luca swore on his soul to protect her. He punches a code into a hidden panel, revealing a pitch-black escape shaft. He gives her 90 seconds before the assassins breach the steel. Stay and perish, or take the hand of a monster and live. Life often forces us to make a bitter choice between two profound darknesses. Serena watches the violent static on the monitors, realizing she has no choice but to yield. The psychological weight crashing down on Serena is immense. The quiet man who did crossword puzzles and forgot her birthdays was secretly embedded in a world of cutthroat violence. That strange phone call now echoes through her mind like a death knell. Luca cuts through her spiraling panic, warning that they have only 60 seconds remaining before the door gives way. She looks up at his scarred face, reading the map of 100 brutal wars, and issues a broken threat. If he is lying, she swears she will make him bleed. Never underestimate the fuel of a shattered heart. A deep, righteous anger can carry a person the absolute worst of life's storms. Luca actually chuckles at her defiance, a low rumble of genuine respect as they plunge together into the utter dark. Concrete dust rains down as a blast rips the heavy steel door off its hinges. They run blind through a suffocating tunnel, the cold earth pressing in on their grief. Luca moves with a predatory calm, his light cutting the dark, while Serena fights back the urge to simply collapse. Panting heavily, she begs to know where they are going. Luca murmurs they are heading to a forgotten sublevel, buying themselves a mere 6 hours before the hounds catch their scent. Always remember this fundamental rule. Time is the one absolute currency you can never earn back. When survival is on the line, every single breath has to count. They emerge into a damp, oil-stained bunker, greeted not by a luxury vehicle, but by a battered grey sedan. It is the perfect ghost ship for a clean escape. Luca handles the machine exactly how he enters a street fight, brutal, quiet, and terrifyingly precise. They tear out of the underground, hitting the slick pavement at 60 miles an hour. Looking back through the rain, Serena watches the only safe haven she knew become engulfed in furious flames. Luca shows zero emotion over his fallen crew, coldly stating they will count the bodies when the sun comes up. When she tearfully accuses him of having no heart, he violently whips the car into an alley, throwing her hard against the glass. Letting your raw emotions govern your hands in a crisis will only dig your grave. You and I must learn to find stillness inside the chaos. In the heavy silence that follows, she whispers a chilling truth. She left his place untouched. Luca demands to know if anyone has been watching the apartment. They must disappear tonight. Serena stammers about the massive crime scene, but Luca merely stares at her with hollow, exhausted eyes. The syndicate owns the building, and the police are already bought. By sunrise, those bodies will be ghosts. This is the exact moment the floor drops out from beneath Serena, plunging her into a shadow world she never asked for. Tears as she asks the question shattering her heart, was her father actually a good man? Luca refuses to sugarcoat the dark reality. Her father was a dangerous man who committed terrible sins. But here is a profound truth about life. But true love is often a bitter sacrifice. He could have vanished years ago, but he chose to stand in the line of fire simply because he refused to abandon his daughter. Luca grips the steering wheel, his knuckles stark white as the ugly truth spills out. Her father spent his life building a massive web of backup plans. Serena lashes out, her voice raw with grief, blaming the old man for ruining her future. But Luca lays down the freezing reality. He is the only shield standing between her and Dante. They drive through painfully ordinary streets, watching people walk their dog obliviously altars. It is haunting how an underworld war can burn just a block away while the city sleeps. We rarely grasp the sheer beauty of a normal life until it is violently ripped from our hands. Cherish your quiet days because they can vanish without warning. They park at the decaying building, hiding her father's secrets, By pure miracle Serena still carries the old silver key. That tiny piece of metal is their only salvation. The narrow hallway reeks of damp, earth, and rot. But Luca moves with the cold, mechanical precision of a seasoned predator. Before Serena can even blink, his weapon is drawn, and he commands her to stay squarely behind his back. She tries to mask her fear with false bravado, but Luca instantly shuts each other down. She is a total rookie stepping onto a ruthless battlefield, and blank pride will only get her killed. Here is a vital lesson for survival. When you find yourself drowning in a chaotic world you do not understand, swallowing your ego and letting the expert lead is your only hope. The door appears untouched, yet Luca quietly defeats the deadbolt in mere seconds. Inside, the apartment is a heartbreaking time close of her father's solitary existence. The sagging couch, the cheapy paperbacks, it is so painfully normal that her throat tightens. The desperate search for his hidden legacy finally begins.
Let us pause and unpack this moment together. Serena discovers a faded photograph of herself resting on the dusty nightstand, and the sight twists a heavy knife in her chest.
She cannot help but wonder if her father was already a monster when that picture was taken. Before her anxiety can fully spiral, Luca suddenly calls out from across the room. He is kneeling by a neglected bookshelf, holding a cheap paperback novel. He points to the copyright page, which was printed 3 months ago, but her father has been dead for 6. Someone else has been here. Luca cracks the spine, revealing a hollowed-out cavity, hiding a tiny flash drive. He pockets the prize, softly warning her that it could be a decoy. In a shadow world built entirely on deception, you can never trust the easiest answer. Suddenly, the quiet reflection is violently shattered. The apartment door literally explodes inward in a shower of splinters. Serena does not freeze in the chaos. A primal, desperate instinct completely takes over. She dives behind the paper just as bullets begin ripping through the drywall like wet paper. Luca does not even blink. He returns fire with a terrifying calculated accuracy. 3 deafening cracks echo through the tiny room, followed by a sickeningly heavy thud out in the hallway. Luca yells for an exit, but this concrete tomb only offers a rusted fire escape. Serena throws her entire body weight against the painted window frame. It splinters open, letting the freezing night wind bite into her skin. There is a harsh truth about human survival hidden here. When you have nothing left to lose, you will by the sheer strength you find break down your own walls. The rusted iron groans loudly as she scrambles down into the dark alley, her boots hitting the cold pavement as she sprints away. Luca catches up with her in the deep shadows, pointing sharply toward their hidden getaway car. High above them, the ruined apartment is already crawling with armed mercenaries. Dante Casimir is no longer just sending a polite message. He is declaring an all-out war. The tires scream against the asphalt as Luca throws the engine into gear, melting seamlessly into the dark city streets. Serena is trembling violently, pressing her freezing hands firmly between her knees to stop the physical shaking. Luca watches the mirrors with intense focus, mentioning a remote safe house located far beyond the city limits. Serena lets out a cracked, breathless laugh. Just a few hours ago, her biggest anxiety was choosing what to eat for dinner. It is a brutal wake-up call. You never truly know the people who raised you until the dark sins of their hidden past come knocking on your front door with a loaded weapon. In the suffocating silence of the car, Luca softly asks if she ended up choosing the pizza or the noodles. Serena Slay just stares at his scarred profile, quietly admitting that she fell asleep on the couch instead. A tiny, almost invisible smirk crosses his face as he mutters that she really should have ordered the noodles. It is a completely absurd exchange, yet a brusque smile escapes her lips anyway. As the bright city lights slowly fade into total darkness, the terrifying reality finally crashes down upon her shoulders. Her quiet, comfortable life is gone forever. Destiny can be remarkably cruel like that. The most violent shifts in our personal lives always seem to happen when we are looking the other way. You either adapt instantly to the chaos or you simply drown in it. 2 long hours later, the car tires crunch heavily over lonely gravel. They have finally reached the isolated woodland safe house. Imagine the kind of utterly isolated cabin where desperate people go to disappear forever. Luca cuts the headlights immediately, allowing the heavy car to roll forward in total darkness. Serena whispers nervously that the decaying building looks completely condemned. Luca simply replies that it is forgotten, which is far safer. He steps out into the thick mud, sweeping the dark tree line with his weapon raised. Every single step is perfectly measured. Serena realizes that she is not watching fear. She is witnessing the cold, calculated muscle memory of a man who truly lives in the shadows. Here is the painful truth of their world. Survival is absolutely never an accident. True professionals never sit around praying for good luck to save them. They rely entirely on iron preparation and paranoia. Once he gives the clear signal, she steps inside. The air is terribly thick with the heavy stench of wet rot and decay.
You and I unpack the psychological weight of this moment. The cabin is an absolute nightmare, lacking a running water and heat. Serena mutters bitterly that it is a 5-star experience.
But Luca ignores the heavy sarcasm. Being entirely off the grid is the only way to ensure Dante cannot track their movements. He pulls the tiny flash drive from her heavy coat and drops it onto the rotting wooden table. Serena firmly demands a computer to read the files. Luca admits he has a secure machine hidden in the trunk, but he hesitates. He warns her that if her father truly documented the crime syndicate, the dark truth is going to break her spirit. It is a remarkably heavy life lesson. Sometimes choosing to stay in the dark is the only way to protect your own heart. Digging up buried truths will often completely destroy the fond memories of the people you love the most. Serena clenches her jaw, ready. Serena absolutely refuses to look away now, Ichimi. Working as a nurse, she has held the cold hands of the dying and witnessed the physical wreckage of humanity. She believes she can handle the ugly details. But Luca's voice drops to a remarkably heavy whisper as he explains that the pain is entirely different when it wears the familiar face of your family. Serena lets out a sharp, bitter laugh in response. Her childhood was an elaborate lie, and hitmen are currently hunting her down. This highlights the absolute hardest part of processing grief. You can never heal from a deep emotional wound until you force yourself to stare directly at the knife that cut you. Luca silently nods. He retrieves a battered laptop from the car, heavily scarred by an old bullet graze. He plugs in the small drive, and a massive vault of Mafia ledgers and encrypted video spills onto the screen recently. The bomb is finally ticking. Stick with me here, because the psychological shadow deepens significantly. Serena's father was a master architect of dangerous secrets. As Luca slowly clicks through the hidden folders, massive waves of dirty money scroll across the glowing screen. The old man meticulously kept the quick receipts for 15 agonizing years. Every single bribe, every corrupted judge, and the coordinates of every shallow grave, and it is more than enough ammunition to burn Dante's entire criminal empire to the ground. Serena's first instinct is to immediately dial the police. Luca just shakes his head, a hollow laugh. escaping his chest. Listen closely to the bleak reality of organized crime. Putting your blind, unquestioning faith into a deeply broken system is the fastest way to get yourself put in the ground. Long before the federal agents could ever build a solid legal case, Dante would simply burn the entire city down. Luca's voice cuts sharply through the heavy cabin silence, completely cold and absolute. Dante will not just kill the two of them. He will slaughter everyone Serena has ever cared about, simply to leave a terrifying message written in blood. They absolutely need this stolen data to force a tense ceasefire. Serena stares blankly at the flickering monitor, realizing that ruthless men do not start massive wars over simple tax fraud. Luca clicks on a deeply hidden file, and the true horror spills out. Dante is quietly moving heavy military artillery across 6 different borders. Her father was not just balancing the Mafia books. He was secretly building a massive guillotine for the entire underworld. Standing on the moral high ground does not magically make you bulletproof. Her father died violently in the dirt long before he could wear a hero's cape. The only thing keeping them breathing is that tiny drive. Let us unpack a moment that shatters a person completely. Serena drowns in a sea of files, freezing on a single photograph. This is her father, yet the gentleman she knew is absent. Instead, a cold stranger stands beside lethal killers in a room choked by dirty cash. The walls collapse. Stumbling into the biting night air, she claws at her chest, desperate for oxygen. Luca follows, his shadow cutting across the porch. When she begs to know why he risks his life to save hers, he goes dead silent. 5 years ago, a rival's syndicate nearly buried him, but her father altered his fate. Here is a brutal truth we must all eventually accept. You never truly understand the dark, hidden lives your loved ones navigate until the bloody bill finally comes due. Luca stares into the oppressive darkness and confesses a heavy truth. Her mild-mannered father once crawled beneath a vehicle and severed the wires on an explosive meant for the hitman. He saved a life, forging a permanent blood debt that Luke now pays by keeping Serena breathing. Panic takes hold. She spirals, pursuing frantic plans to change her name and vanish entirely. Luca crushes that fragile hope in an instant. Dante Chon controls the major highways, the local police, and the distant borders. You do not simply walk away from a phantom who owns the shadows. The harsh lessons of this violent ecosystem is clear. Blind loyalty is a brutal double-edged sword. It might keep your physical heart beating, but it traps your eternal soul forever. Soon, the adrenaline fades completely. Serena is running on absolute empty, the cycle of violence draining her spirit. Her bones ache as she whispers a plea for Luca to finally rest. Yet, the enforcer is forged from cold iron and profound regret. He offers a grim smile, muttering he will only sleep when she is secure. In his violent reality, that means true rest may never arrive. She collapses onto a stained cot, totally numb to the filth. Before darkness pulls her under, she glimpses him perched by the window like a stone gargoyle, illuminated only by a pale screen. Her exhausted mind conjures vivid nightmares of her father wading through blood to count dirty money, and dawn breaks, and Luca remains perfectly still. Never forget this simple truth. Peace of mind is a luxury you cannot afford when the devil wants you dead. When she asks if he managed to close his eyes, Luca releases a dry, hollow laugh. The man is a machine built for war. Serena slowly sits up, her exhausted body screaming in protest, clothes stiff with dirt and dried blood. Instantly, Luke shifts back into pure survival mechanics. The invisible clock is ticking loudly, and Dante is pulling the hunting net tighter. They must move immediately. Ask for a master plan. Luca rubs his tired face and admits he possesses only half of one. The encrypted flash drive is their shield, but they must surrender it to an official who cannot be bought. He must rely on an untraceable payphone to call in highly dangerous favors. Let me share a simple rule of survival. Moving forward with a fractured plan is always better than dying with none at all. They make a desperate push toward a ruined gas station 10 miles down the desolate highway. Luca stretches his heavy frame, his weary joints cracking loud enough to echo in the silence. He promises to stop, and adding that if Dante sends his men, they will simply handle it. Serena shivers, and it's understanding that handling it means unleashing pure, unadulterated violence. They roll out as a golden sunrise bleeds through the dense timber. The breathtaking forest feels like a cruel, cinematic joke while they sprint toward their potential graves. Luca drives with surgical precision, his weapon resting heavy on the seat. Serena studies the cold steel, wondering if her trembling hands could ever pull the trigger. Here is a hard truth. The beautiful morning sky does not care if your heart is breaking. The station is a rotting ghost town featuring a filthy payphone hanging by a frayed wide wire. Luca orders her to stay hidden, but Serena flatly refuses. The era of playing the helpless victim in the dark is officially over. She steps out into the biting wind, demanding they face this reality together. Luca feeds silver quarters into the rusting slot, dialing a secure number entirely from memory. The voice answering is drowning in raw panic. Dante has unleashed his hounds, tearing the concrete apart to hunt them down. The criminal underworld assumes Luca is sparking a massive civil war. Staying ice cold, Luca drops his voice to a harsh whisper and demands the name of one clean federal agent. Remember this simple lesson for the dark road. A few small coins might just buy your life. Stick with me, because the psychological tension is suffocating. Luca demands a name from an impossibly short list. Through heavy static, his contact whispers about Agent Sarah Chen. She has spent 3 grueling years trying to bury Dante, only to watch every witness vanish into thin air. But here is the agonizing twist. Chen is locked down in a hotel located right in the pulsating heart of the city. The contact is a final warning before hanging up. Dropping the receiver, Luca turns to deliver the crushing blow. To hand over the drive, they must march straight back into the exact nightmare they just escaped. The hard lesson of the day is profound. Sometimes, the only true way out of hell is to boldly walk directly into the center of the roaring flames. Luca fires up the heavy engine, stating flatly that they cannot outrun the devil forever. Serena deeply hates his logic, yet the suffocating fear in her chest is finally hardening into pure resolve. She looks at the glowing laptop and declares they will not walk into a slaughter empty-handed. If her father managed the syndicate books for 15 years, he undoubtedly left behind a toxic ledger of corrupt judges and dirty cops. She plans to leak the files, blinding Dante with massive political chaos. While his enforcers rush to put out public fires, they will slip right through the front door. Luca offers a wicked, proud smile. Here is the undeniable lesson. When you find yourself vastly outnumbered, you must bravely weaponize the enemy and their darkest secrets against them. Hidden in the shadows, Luca opens the laptop. He digs through complex digital partitions until striking absolute gold. He uncovers a buried folder bleeding with the names of compromised police captains and bought politicians. Looking up with genuine respect in his weary eyes, Luca calls her father a legend of the underworld. Serena whispers that he was simply a lonely man who worshipped small details. Quickly, Luca drafts a merciless public warning. The message is painfully blunt. The truth is out. The evidence is live and every rat is about to drown. He warns Serena that hitting send will instantly make them the most hunted ghosts in the entire Bleeding City. Then his heavy finger strikes the key. Mark my words, no one panics harder than a guilty man with a fake reputation to protect. The second that digital bomb detonates, the corrupt infrastructure of the city tears itself apart. Burner phones ring out in the dark while Dante and his organized hunt shatters into utter chaos. Packing the heavy weapon and the drive, Serena asks how they will ever slip past the armed barricades. Luca shakes his head. They will not creep through the dirty alleyways like frightened prey. Instead, they will walk right down Main Street. The syndicate is searching for a weeping orphan and a blood-soaked killer, not a boring married couple running errands. Stopping at a road thrift store, Scafide, Luca hands Serena a faded floral sundress, a piece that feels like a cruel mockery of tragedy. Listen carefully. Standing in bright daylight is often far safer than cowering in the shadows. Luca says that while wearing wrinkled khakis and a faded polo, completely erasing every trace of the lethal enforcer he was trained to be. Serena stares in pure disbelief, but Luca calmly states that true invisibility is simply looking too boring to remember. She retreats into the cracked bathroom and slips into the awful dress. The woman staring back in the shattered mirror is a total stranger. She wears cheap shoes and dusty fabric, yet her chest rises with a beating heart. They drive straight into the snarled throat of rush hour, surrounded by ordinary citizens sipping coffee, entirely oblivious to the invisible war raging around them. It is a haunting truth of human nature. The most profound lies we tell are the simple, quiet costumes we wear just to survive another dangerous day. You and I both know exactly how fast this brutal world can strip away your innocence. Just yesterday, Serena was a grieving daughter. Today, she is a hardened survivor. They approach a rundown, downtown hotel, the exact kind of concrete tomb where dark secrets go to die. Luca parks several blocks away, checking the heavy steel of his weapon before hiding it beneath his Aid 412. The destination is, the rules of this game are absolute. Take the stairs and avoid the cameras. Walking into the packed lobby, Luca wraps his heavy arm around her waist. They look like a couple deeply in love, but Serena leans into his side out of pure, agonizing desperation. They climb the echoing stairs together. Sometimes, faking a quiet smile is the only weapon you have left to stay alive. Let us step into the shadows of this corridor together. Notice how the air itself seems to choke on the dread as they pass the pealing numbers. 408, 410, 412. Luca raps 3 times on the rotting wood, offering his name and enough leverage to bury the Casimir syndicate for good. The door cracks, held by a rusty chain, revealing Agent Chen with her weapon drawn. She sees the prime suspect of an estate massacre right in front of her, but Luca does not flinch. He offers her the exact files needed to dismantle Dante Casimir entirely. You can see the hunger warring with her doubt brings to a harsh but necessary truth. Facing the very storms that threaten to destroy us is often the only way to tear open the doors we assumed were locked forever. The tension in that narrow space is heavy enough to crush a bone. Luca warns the agent that the hit squad is already breathing down their necks. If they fall here, the truth falls with them. Serena emerges from the dark, trembling but anchored by a fierce resolve. She confesses her father was Thomas Vale, a man who fed 15 years to the syndicate, recording every sin before they buried him. Every drop of stolen blood is trapped on one flash drive. Chen tries to hold her stoic mask, but her pulse hammers. She chased this phantom for 3 agonizing years. Now, Luca is handing her the loaded gun, daring her to pull the trigger. Life forces us all to these terrifying crossroads, moments where we must simply close our eyes, accept the crushing risks, and take a blind leap into the dark. Chen shatters, dropping the chain and giving them 5 minutes before the handcuffs come out. They steps into a shrine of pure obsession. Case files bury the floorboards, and a whiteboard screams Dante Casimir's name in angry red ink. The base reeks of stale coffee and exhausted nights. Luca hands over the drive. Chen opens a file, fighting to keep her face like stone. But Serena catches the itch in her jaw. When Chen asks how he got it, Luca spins a lie with the chilling ease of a veteran predator. He claims her father left it as a failsafe, blaming his delete on the bodies piling up in the streets. We see here that genuine power is born from absolute patience. You have to swallow your panic and hold your heaviest cards until the exact right second to strike. Chen scrolls through the encrypted ledgers, her eyes wide. She realizes this ghost will bury dozens of stage bosses, including the man standing calmly in her room. She stares at Luca, haunted that a hardened enforcer just handed over his own execution orders. Luca does not even blink. He looks at Serena, the crushing gravity of his past visible in his posture, and states it is the only way to keep her breathing. He was choosing his freedom to purchase her a future. When Chen asks what Serena wants from this nightmare, she looks at their stained hands and whispers she just wants to survive long enough to remember who she is. True sacrifice is a brutal thing. It means setting fire to your own world just to keep someone else warm through the harsh winter. Moved by this, grabs her phone. You and I know that playing strictly by the rules is a quick way to get killed. Luca shuts Chen down before she dials. Dante owns her commanders. If she calls it in, they will bleed out before the sirens start. Luca demands they vanish for 48 hours, entirely off the grid. Chen clings to standard protocol, but Luca shatters the illusion. He reminds her, his voice a dangerous growl, that protocol is the exact reason her witnesses end up in zipped body bags. He is handing her the devil, but she has to step into the mud to catch him. Sometimes, you have to tear up the manual to secure real justice. Chen stares him down, slams her laptop shut, and finally agrees. But she promises, with absolute venom in her teeth, that if he betrays her, she will put a bullet in his chest herself. For a fleeting second, they are united. Chen shoulders her bag, ready to vanish. Then, the door is violently kicked off its hinges. 3 armed killers flood the room. Chen reacts on pure instinct, dropping the lead man with 2 deafening shots. The space erupts into a war zone. Luca shoves Serena behind the mattress, returning fire as thick gunpowder chokes the air. A second hitman drops, but boots echo down the hall. An army is coming. Chen screams to take the window. Serena throws it open, staring down 4 brutal stories of empty air. When the flames are closing in, sometimes you have to take a terrifying leap into the absolute unknown. Chen grabs her arm, and together they hurl themselves into the dark sky. For one agonizing heartbeat, Serena feels entirely weightless. We need to process this sheer madness together. Serena plummets through the dark, slamming brutally into a canvas awning. The fabric rips, dumping her onto a parked car before she hits the concrete. Every nerve screams in agony, but she is breathing. Chen hits the ground next and dragging her to the getaway vehicle. Luca crashes down last, bleeding but his eyes blazing. Bullets shower from above, shattering the pavement as they scramble inside. Luca floors the pedal, tires, screaming. A terrified Serena demands to know how they were found. The bitter truth. Chen left her phone on, and Dante tracked the signal. Luca cuts the rising panic short, steering violently into the night. It is a vital lesson. When your world is collapsing around you, you have to stop asking why and just keep moving forward. They tear through the night with a drive holding the darkest secrets of the underworld. An entire empire is hunting them. Chen guides them to a rotting farmhouse an hour north. It smells of damp wood, but offers a temporary shield. Chen drops her laptop onto a table, cloning the files to ensure that if one drive burns, the truth survives. Luca asks for a timeline, and her answer is crushing. 36 hours. They do not have that time. While Luca paces, verbally burning every Mafia secret he knows, Serena quietly reads her father's ledgers. The man she idolized was actually a ruthless stranger. It is a heartbreaking reality. Sometimes the people we look up to most are hiding the darkest demons, and the only way to truly heal is to finally accept that painful truth. They are running on bitter coffee and food that tastes like ash. A bone-deep exhaustion settles in. Near midnight, the house falls quiet. Chen steps outside for a secure call, leaving Serena alone with Luca. He softly launches her to rest, but bitterness rises in her throat. She lets out a hollow laugh, whispering that even if the boss rots in a cell, she will always be looking over her shoulder. Luca meets her gaze with heavy eyes, offering a cold truth. Eventually, the fear becomes a part of you. You learn to adapt. Serena studies his violent scars and the quiet grief he buries. She finally asks why he actually promised to protect her. The truth here is profound. Real loyalty is rarely about repaying a basic debt. It is almost always anchored in a deep, unhealed pain. Luca goes completely silent. You can hear the wind pulling at the walls. Finally, his voice asks. Her father begged him to keep Serena isolated from the syndicate. Thomas knew the underworld was a poison, and he wanted her untouched. Luca looks into her eyes, confessing his agonizing guilt. He feels he failed, because now she is drowning in the same nightmare. Serena softens, telling him that keeping her breathing still means something. Remember this. Sometimes your purest intentions unravel into chaos, but keeping the people you love alive is a massive victory. The quiet shatters when Chen bursts back into the room, her face pale. She points to the laptop. A live news feed shows their old hotel swarming with police and zipped body bags. But those body bags are not even the real problem. The harsh glow of the security footage illuminates their desperate situation. Grainy images show Luca, Serena, and Agent Chen stepping into the hotel together, sealing their fates. Chen's voice is hollow as she confirms her cover is completely destroyed. The news cycles are branding her a corrupt agent, entirely orchestrated by Dante to make her a hunted fugitive. With her badge revoked, handing over the evidence is no longer an option. Serena is paralyzed by the sheer hopelessness of it all, but Chen simply looks up, her eyes burning with a cold acceptance of her new outlaw life. They are going to hunt Dante themselves. It teaches us a grim lesson about survival. When the world pushes you past your breaking point, setting fire to the rulebook is the only way to walk out alive. Let us look at how this alliance solidifies us. Luca meets Chen's gaze with a dangerously reckless smile. They silently agree to cross us they can never walk back from. Serena looks at the impossible trio, a brutal Mafia boss, an exiled agent, and herself, a grieving nurse just learning the cold weight of a gun. She can barely believe her own voice when she asks how they plan to kill Dante. It leaves you and I with a heavy realization. The point of no return is never a place on a map. It is a permanent choice you make in your soul, and once made, you must own it until the end. Chen unrolls a city map, slamming it down. It is marked with angry red circles. detailing heavily armed warehouses and high-end clubs. Every location is a violent fortress waiting to swallow them whole. Chen pinned a waterfront warehouse on the map, calling it the beating heart of Dante's empire. It hit it hard, and the king Sleeves castle. Luca killed the idea instantly, knowing a direct assault would only end in body bags. But a dark realization washed over Chen's face. They did not need to win a violent shootout. They only needed to inflict enough psychological agony to drag the boss out of hiding. Rising, Serena felt panic seizing, asking if murder was the plan. No, Chen replied softly. A recorded confession.
You and I have seen this tragic pattern throughout history. Powerful men become so blinded by their own invincibility that they stop watching the shadows.
Unchecked arrogance is always the exact shovel a tyrant uses to dig. His grown pride was finally going to destroy him. Luca let out a heavy breath, reminding them that Dante was a paranoid ghost who erased all loose ends. But Chen's voice dropped to a freezing calm. They would steal the single piece of his soul he actually loved. The room went dead silent as she revealed a photo of Natalia. The boss's daughter was a sheltered art student, perfectly blinded to her father's bloody legacy. Lucas stared at the screen, shaken. Kidnapping a crime lord's child was a fast death sentence. Chen held his gaze, daring him to find a better path. Where Serene stood frozen, drowning in the madness her life had become. This moment forces us to swallow a bitter reality. Desperation is a terrible master. When your back is against the wall, fear will force you to shatter the very moral boundaries you once swore to defend. Serena refused to be a monster who drags an innocent girl into a gang war. Chen snapped back, arguing that sharing Dante's blood made the girl guilty. Tears spilled from Serena's eyes. If her father's sins defined the child, she belonged in a prison cell too. Those words suffocated the room. Ruining a bystander was a bridge too far, and Chen's hard expression briefly fractured. You and I know this tragic reality well. Survival rarely offers clean hands. It demands agonizing choices that haunt your quiet moments forever. Luca sat like a stone, admitting he'd damned his soul for much less. But they desperately needed leverage to survive. With no other way out, they finally crossed the ultimate moral line. They committed to the most unforgivable strategy of all. They would use human bait. Step with me into the shadows where the cycle of violence truly begins. Serena sits in the dim room, her voice numb, as she finalizes the trap. On the table rests a photo of Natalia. The girl has a bright smile, blind to how her father's brutal sins are about to ruin her life. Serena demands one strict rule. There will be absolutely no physical violence. They only need her as leverage. Luca and Chen agree, but strategies born in the dark rarely stay clean. They spend the night obsessively memorizing the student's routine. There is a quiet life lesson hiding here. Routine feels safe, but being highly predictable always makes you a neat target. By dawn, the crew rolls out in a stolen sedan, faces buried under dark brims. They expect a perfect grab, but in this underworld, a flawless crime is just a myth. Behind dark glasses, the crew blends into the morning commute. At 8:15, Natalia steps out. Her earbuds are in, sealing her off from the predators watching her. She walks with the ease of someone who never learned what vicious the world can be. There is a harsh reality to observe here. Ignorance will never serve as a shield against the cruelty of life. Thus Serena watches from the car, feeling physically sick. Luca asks if she wants to abort, but she swallows her guilt and nods forward. They track the student into a coffee shop. Chen slips inside, buys a drink, and waits. The second Natalia looks away, Chen fakes a clumsy trip. She drops the cup, grabbing the girl's arm with a loud apology. To the bystanders, it looks like a harmless accident. In truth, the trap is sprung. Watch how fast a morning shatters. The hidden syringe is so tiny Serena almost misses it. Chen presses it against Natalia's arm, injecting the sedative right through her coat. The chemical hits fast. The student's eyes glaze over, and her legs fold. Chen immediately yells for help, playing the panicked bystander to perfection. Luca swoops in, shouting his car is idling outside. They hustle her limp body into the sedan before the crowd can process the abduction. Serena holds the unconscious hostage as they tear through the city. Soon, they reach an isolated hunting lodge deep in the frozen woods. The stale air smells like wet wood and old regrets. The lesson here is deeply grounded. Unforgivable deeds always demand a lonely place to hide. They check her pulse. She is sleeping, but entirely stable. Chen notes the girl will wake up without a scratch, but the guilt of inflicting trauma is eating Serena alive. She fears Dante will slaughter innocents to get his child back. Luca Isa slices through her panic with cold reality. He reminds her the Mafia king built this empire with his own hands. There is a harsh truth we must all face. You cannot shield toxic people from the destructive fallout of their own choices. Serena wants to argue, but her spirit is drained. She steps out onto the freezing porch, desperately trying to recognize the gentle healer she was 3-day eye guide. That innocent version of her, or is already a ghost. Luca steps into the cold behind her, asking if she is holding together. Serena stares into the dark trees, delivering a flat, devastating no. Stay close to me on this beat, because Serena's mind is fracturing. She remembers taking a sacred oath to never cause harm. Yet tonight, she is an accomplice in a kidnapping. Luca tries to shoulder the weight, insisting he and Chen committed the actual crime. Serena refuses the easy out. Then Luca offers a profound truth. He tells her that feeling terror is never a character flaw. This is a vital lesson. Fear is pure information, pointing directly to what you value most. Serena is terrified of becoming the monsters who ruined her family, and that exact fear is the only thing keeping her human. She asks what keeps his own soul intact. His answer is a hollow punch to the gut. Nothing. He crossed into the dark a long time ago. He only prays she can escape before this life swallows her. Inside the cabin, Chen moves like a cold-blooded director. She mounts in a camera, staging a video to force an impossible trade. Dante brings his confession, and they return his child. Luca doubts Boss will fold, but Chen reveals a brutal twist. She will threaten the girls' Messiah life on tape. Serena panics, reminding them of their no-violence rule. Chen remains a block of ice.
They do not have to hurt the student. They just need Dante to believe it all. This proves a dark lesson. The looming anticipation of violence is often far more destructive than the act itself.
Natalia groans and begins to stir. She squints against the harsh lights, entirely disoriented. When her eyes focus on the masked captors, pure terror takes over. Serena steps forward, desperately playing the gentle savior to calm her. You and I are stepping into the peak of this nightmare. Natalia is shaking uncontrollably, pleading for her life. Chen stands like a wall of ice, bluntly explaining she is nothing but the human bargaining chip. The young woman cries, swearing she knows nothing about her father's criminal empire. Luca steps from the shadows to deliver a crushing truth. Her knowledge means nothing. It is her emotional value to the Don that makes her the ultimate weapon. Serena tries to soften the blow, promising the girl she will survive. But comfort always sounds hollow coming from a kidnapper. Chen ignores the tension and hits record. She forces the weeping daughter to read their strict demands. This exposes a profound life lesson. No matter how untouchable a monster appears, loving another person's will always be their greatest vulnerability. Step with me into a room choked with midnight dread. Natalia reads the casted script, her voice like a ghost trapped in the lens. Chen fires the encrypted video to the Mafia boss. Then comes the worst part of any psychological war, the deafening silence of waiting. Serena tries playing the comforting hero, but claiming to be the good, the guy means nothing when your hands hold the ransoms. Finally, the burner phone vibrates. Dante folds, dropping meeting coordinates for tomorrow. Chen is stunned. He broke so quickly. Luca knows they hold the only piece the boss has left. The crew spends the dark hours racking weapons, preparing for blood. Serena lies on a cot, staring at the ceiling. It leaves us with a quiet, bitter truth. The agonizing anticipation of a storm is always worse than the thunder itself. The hostage slips into a troubled sleep. Serena watches Chen pace the floorboards like a caged animal. Chen confides that sleep never comes before a heavy job. 15 years, she whispers. 15 years hunting predators, but actively committing a felony.
That is a haunting first. She lets out a broken laugh, realizing that, on paper, she is officially a villain.
Serena stares into the dark and asks the heavy question.
Are we the bad guys?
Legally, morally, the line has entirely washed away. Serena thinks of her father, realizing he lived his whole life balancing on this exact ethical razor blade. Chen looks her dead in the eye, warning that she is already acting like him. The lesson here is cold but undeniable. Spend enough time hunting monsters, and you will eventually learn how to breathe in the shadows. You and I have seen how morning light changes everything. Dawn washes over the city, cold and unforgiving. The crew packs their car in a heavy, suffocating silence. Luca takes the wheel, Chen riding shotgun, while Serena sits beside Natalia, who just stares out the glass with hollow eyes. They arrive at a rotting factory, a perfect stage for the tragedy about to unfold. Chen slips away to the second floor, setting her sniper rifle on a broken windowsill. Down in the dirt, Luca lays out the final rules. He will do the talking. If things fall apart, Serena has to run. She grips his arm tightly, promising she will never leave him. Luca just gives her a tragically soft smile. He understands the brutal reality of their underworld. When the fire finally spreads, true survival means leaving your deepest loyalties to burn in the ashes. Right at noon, 3 black sedans crunch over the gravel, boxing them in. Dante Casimir steps into the dry dirt. You might expect a monster, but he is just a man in a tailored suit. He strolls forward alone and it's empty, wrapped in a terrifying calm. Luca holds his ground, eyes burning with defiance. Dante smirks, mocking the young man for adding kidnapping to his resume. Luca demands the confession and Dante demands his daughter. Serena nudges the crying girl forward. For one fleeting heartbeat, it doesn't look like a devoted father whispering soft comforts. Then he turns back, his gaze shifting to absolute frost. He whispers that Luca just made a fatal error. The lesson here is written in blood. Never mistake a quiet, composed man for someone out of deadly options. Luca refuses to back down, insisting they hold the upper hand. But stick with me, because this is where the floor drops out. Dante flashes a cruel smile, mentioning he brought something to trade. 2 enforcers drag a terrified man into the dirt. Serena stops breathing. Her voice shakes as she stammers that it is impossible. The man lifts his head, his face melting into pure guilt. Fleeble speaks her name. It is Thomas Vale, her own father. Serena nearly collapses, crying that she buried him 6 months ago. Dante delivers the final blow. It was a decoy body, and her father planned the deception himself. It leaves us with a painful reminder about human nature. The truth is a relentless ghost. No matter how deep you try to bury a lie, it will always claw its way back up. Serena is shattered, gasping for air as reality sets in. Dante steps closer, mocking her like a naive child. He breaks down the tragedy piece by piece. The heart attack, the funeral, her crushing grief, all a cheap stage play. Thomas was supposed to testify, but he panicked when he realized he would lose his lavish lifestyle. Serena begs her father to say Dante is lying, but Thomas just stands there. His dead silence is deafening. Dante gloats over their dirty deal. Thomas faked his death and handed over the evidence to buy his freedom. Luca feels his blood run cold as he realizes this hunt was rigged from day one. It reveals a bitter truth about taking shortcuts. Choosing the easy way out almost always guides you straight into the darkest traps imaginable. Dante revels in her pain, explaining how every clue they found was a crafted trap. He played her grieving heart perfectly. Above them, Chen radios a frantic warning about a major problem, but Serena is completely tuned out. Her world has narrowed to the living ghost in front of her. You let me bury you, she weeps. You let me hate myself for not saving you. Thomas weakly pleads that he faked his death to protect her from the syndicate, but something inside Serena freezes over. She steps back, radiating pure ice, and tells him he only did it because he is a coward. When he reaches out, she forbids her from ever speaking her name again. Dante just laughs at the broken family. It proves a bitter reality. True love protects, but cowardice only destroys the people you claim to care about. Dante paces the dust, deeply amused by the chaos. He demands the real evidence drive, laughing at their visible confusion. Did they honestly believe he would hide secrets in a paperback book? The drive they stole was a fake wired with a tracker. They carried a bug straight to their safe house. On the radio, Chen's voice crackles with panic. 24 enforcers are surrounding the factory. Luca raises his weapon, demanding to know where the real files are. That is when Thomas steps forward. Staring at the dirt, he drops a devastating bomb. He destroyed everything. 15 years of bloody evidence, burned to ash to buy his daughter's safety. We learn a heavy lesson here. Sometimes the true price of survival means letting the worst monsters walk away completely unchecked. The absolute finality hangs in the air like thick smoke. Without warning, Dante makes a ruthless move. He draws his weapon and shoots Luca right in the shoulder. The young man crashes hard into the dirt, bleeding heavily. Dante calmly steps over him, pressing the hot barrel straight to the temple of Thomas Vale. The father who faked his funeral is now seconds away from a real one. Serena reacts purely on instinct. She rips Luca's pistol from its holster and points the steel directly at Dante. Her hands are shaking violently. She has never fired a gun in her life, but the universe is forcing her hand. It proves a terrifying reality. When the walls close in, pure survival forces you to become someone you never thought you would be. The tension in this moment is as enough to stop a beating heart. Dante looks down the barrel of Serena's gun and smiles. He taunts her, noting that Thomas chose his own comforter over her tears, yet she still tries to protect the ghost that broke her. You and I can see the painful life lesson unfolding here. Blind loyalty to a toxic family will only leave you broken. Dante tires of the standoff. He pulls his trigger, and Thomas drops dead in the dust. A cold-blooded execution. Serena unleashes a shattered scream. Dante pivots, aiming his weapon at her chest for a final goodbye. But suddenly, a gunshot rings out. Dante screams, dropping his gun as his arm shatters. Through the smokes steps his daughter, Natalia. She holds a smoking pistol with eyes of pure ice. She finally sees the monster her father is, and she is done being his pawn. Dante collapses to his knees, begging his daughter to drop the gun. But Natalia is locked in. She pulls the trigger, and it is lights out for the syndicate boss. The factory instantly explodes into a brutal war zone. The lesson here is absolute. Your darkest secrets will always catch up to you. Gunfire erupts from the shadows. Luca, bleeding heavily, screams at Serena to run. They sprint through the dust, dragging a stunned Natalia. Dante's goons swarm like hornets. Chen meets them downstairs, laying down heavy cover fire. They smash through the back doors, but their car is in 50 yards away. Bullets chew up the gravel.
Then the disaster strikes. A round catches Chen in the leg, sending her crashing into the dirt.
Luca reaches for her, but she screams at him to let go. He has to leave her behind. Bleeding in the dirt, Chen orders Luca to run while she holds the mob back. It hits us with a heavy truth. True loyalty sometimes requires the ultimate sacrifice. Chen props herself up, firing into the dark. Lugan drags the girls to the car. Behind them, Chen fires 3 final shots. Then, only dead silence remains. In peace is to a loyal soldier. They pile into the vehicle. Luca drives one-handed, blood slicking the steering wheel. In the back, Natalia breaks down over killing her father. They speed away, leaving the burning factory behind. But stick with me, because the nightmare is not over. Luca's phone vibrates. He answers, and a chilling robotic voice claims they possess something belonging to the syndicate. Luca grinds his teeth, snapping back that the evidence is already ashes. You might think the worst is over, but the night always holds one more secret. The voice on the phone drops a heavy truth. The main drive is ashes, but her father left a backup copy. Serena freezes as the caller delivers a cruel choice. Hand over the backup or be destroyed. Then just dead air. It is a simple life lesson for us all. Running away never works, because your past always leaves a paper trail. Looking at her battered crew, Serena knows this hunt is far from over. They drag themselves to a rotting fishing shack deep in the swamp, where the air is thick and suffocating. Luca somehow drove them the whole way, his grip trembling on the wheel, using nothing but torn silk from her ruined dress to keep his shoulder from bleeding out completely. Inside the shack, the wind howls through the cracks like a ghost. Natalia sits curled in a corner, paralyzed, staring at the hands she used to end her father. Not a word has left her lips. Under the glow of a cheap lantern, Serena steps up. She packs Luca's wound, her hands steady even as her soul shakes. She begs him to find a hospital, but Luca refuses. A paper trail would only paint a target on their backs. Here is a lesson you and I can take to heart. True strength is push the safety of your people above your own pain. He would rather bleed out on this floor than risk her life. Serena pulls the bandage tight, making his jaw clench in agony, and finally asks the heavy question: did her father truly destroy the evidence? Luca answers with nothing but silence. Let us look at this piece by piece. Luca finally strips away the illusions, admitting the syndicate still believes a backup exists. The crosshairs have never left their backs. A cold dread settles over Serena. Her father always kept insurance on his insurance, but where is it? Luca argues the man was too methodical not to leave a trail. Serena fires back that he was too busy staging his own murder to draw a map. This leaves us with a simple life lesson. Building massive walls of secrecy to protect your family usually just paints a giant target on them instead. Then, from the dark edge of the room, Natalia speaks. Her voice splinters like glass. She whispers that, right before the gunfire, Serena's father confessed she was the single pure thing he ever created. Natalia recounts how her father treated her like a cheap chess piece, just an asset to be spent. Serena absorbed the weight of that shattered childhood. Natalia spirals, weeping as she recalls staring into her father's eyes right before she pulled the trigger. In this syndicate, morality is a ghost. We see a harsh, simple life lesson here. Shared trauma forges iron bonds much faster than joy ever could. The broken shack falls silent as Luca succumbs to his blood loss and passes out. But the quiet is just a lie. Serena's phone buzzes against the table, an unknown number. A hollow, metallic voice asks if she has made her choice, mocking her before dropping the final weight. They know exactly where the crew is hiding. Serena's veins turn to ice. The Don speaks with a dead, terrifying calm. He gives Serena exactly 3 minutes before his enforcers tear the shack down to the mud. He demands the hidden drive, regardless of the blood to get it. Luca jolts awake, his instincts cutting sharply through his fever. He meets Natalia's eyes, and her weeping instantly hardens into pure survival. They snatch their weapons, plunging out the back door into the freezing swamp. Harsh headlights slice violently through the dense fog. The heavy thud of car doors echoes in the night. The syndicate is here. As they wade through the knee-deep sludge, we learn a very simple life lesson. When the shadows are actively hunting you, you cannot waste time crying over the life you lost. You just keep moving forward if you want to see the dawn. Luca pushes through the black water, his bandages weeping blood into the marsh. Gunfire shatters the quiet. A flashlight sweeps the reeds, forcing them beneath the freezing water. Serena holds her breath until her lungs scream. Breaking the surface, they drag their heavy bodies onto the dirt, shivering. Luca, pale as a ghost, growls that they need a car. Serena insists they need a plan. Luca just offers a dark laugh, welcoming her to his chaotic world. They flag down an old truck. When the nervous driver reaches for a phone, Luca instantly draws his weapon. This brings us to a harsh, simple life lesson. Extreme desperation will always force you to cross moral lines you swore you never would. But survival requires you to do whatever is necessary in the dark. Stick with me, this is where the web twists. With a hollow apology, Luca steals the truck, adding another sin to their ledger. Serena takes the wheel as Luca fades into the shadows of his pain. In the back seat, Natalia sits lost in the void, her father's blood still staining her hands. She whispers, asking where they are going. Serena has no answer until her burner phone vibrates. It is Agent Chen. The woman survived the factory collapse, dragging herself through the rubble with a shattered leg. Chen reveals Serena's that Chen's father buried the final evidence under the name Lighthouse. It offers us a very simple life lesson. True loyalty is never proven when the road is clear and easy. It is only proven when you are completely broken, yet still refuse to surrender the fight. Over the static, Chen has begged Serena to dig deep into her fractured memories. At first, her mind is blank, then a ghost surfaces. She remembers her father taking her to a lonely coastal lighthouse, demanding she never forget that location. Mariner's Point, 2 hours north. Chen is certain the evidence is buried there, but leaves a chilling warning about the elite hit squad hunting them. Serena hesitates, asking how she can be sure Chen isn't secretly working for the mob. The agent's reply is brutally honest. You do not know. This brings us to a crucial, simple life lesson. Sometimes, life refuses to give you the luxury of perfect trust. You just have to close your eyes, embrace the unknown, and take a wild leap of faith with the tragic hand you are dealt. Serena lays out the desperate gamble. A tense 2-hour drive through the night with the syndicate breathing down their necks. Luca, burning with a violent fever, argues they will never make it. He is exhausted, bleeding out for a man who staged his own death. But Serena's voice hardens into pure steel. She refuses to let the underworld win. Seeing the fire in her eyes, Luca agrees. They detour to a hidden underground link run by Dr. Rosa. She takes one look at the bullet wound and asks absolutely nothing. She simply stitches the torn shoulder and hands over medicine. We learn a vital, simple life lesson here. When you hit absolute rock bottom, you do not need people interrogating your past choices. You just need someone to quietly patch your wounds so you can survive the fight. Serena stares into the cracked mirror by the hollow stranger staring back. 3 days is all it took for the syndicate to burn her life to the ground. Stepping out, she watches Dr. Rosa bind Natalia's torn hands. The girl had shredded them in the swamp without a complaint. Rosa looks at them, recognizing the shadow of death. Luca admits their trouble is the fatal kind. Without any judgment, Rosa tosses them clean clothes and a roll of cash. Serena hesitates, but Rosa cuts her off, explaining she knows the cold look of a vendetta. This offers a beautiful, simple life lesson. You must never let your ego block a blessing. When someone hands you a genuine lifeline in your absolute darkest hour, you just accept it without saying a word. With cash in their pockets, they fade back into the night at Rosa's final words echo in the silence. Whatever you are running toward, make sure it is worth the blood. They drive for hours. Natalia sleeps, while Luca fights his medication. Serena grips the wheel, constantly scanning the mirror for headlights. Finally, a pale dawn washes over the ghost town of Mariners Point. There, balancing on the edge of a jagged cliff, stands the abandoned lighthouse. They climb the rusted fence, and Luca shatters the rotted door with one violent kick. This leaves us with a profound, simple life lesson. So, the absolute truth you are searching for is buried in the most broke places imaginable. You just need the raw courage to kick the door open. The air inside the lighthouse is heavy, smelling of sea salt and buried regrets. Serena leads the loner climb up the pitch-black stairs. At the very top sits a plain metal box. Serena's hands tremble as she forces it open. Inside lies a small USB drive, a faded photograph, and a handwritten letter from a father. It is an agonizing confession. He writes that if she is reading this, he is already dead, admitting he built her entire world on a mountain of lies. But that tiny drive holds enough criminal evidence to burn the syndicate to ash. He played both sides, paralyzed by the terror of losing her. We take away a tragic, simple life lesson here. Fear makes us do wild things, but lying to protect the people you love usually just puts them directly in the fatal crosshairs. You and I are going to unpack this together. The ink on her father's letter felt like a death sentence. He begged Serena hand the drive to someone untouchable, then vanish, change her name, erase her past. The man who raised her confessed his cowardice, praying this single truth might be her salvation. Serena stood distorted, paralyzed. Beside her, Luca slid the drive into his laptop. The screen illuminated the room with absolute ruin. Wiretaps, hidden accounts, a sickening web of politicians and dirty police. Natalia leaned in, freezing as she recognized her own father's name in the filth. This reveals a profound, simple life lesson. Truth is exactly like water. No matter how deep you bury your dark past, it eventually rises, drowning everyone who tried to keep it hidden. Serena could barely breathe. Whispering their father's name was in the files. They stared at the screen, realizing this plastic drive was both a death sentence. The silence shattered when Luca's phone rang. That mechanical voice poured out, claiming eyes were already on them. Serena rushed to the window, her heart dropping. 3 black vehicles were surrounding the lighthouse, armed men stepping into the fog. The voice offered a cold choice. So surrender the drive and live or die. Serena asked how they could trust a murderer, and the voice replied it was their only option. This gives us a grim, simple life lesson. When hungry wolves are already clawing at your front door, trying to negotiate is just another way to lose absolutely everything. Cornered at the edge of the world, Serena and Luca face a deadly drop into violent, crashing waves, and a mechanical voice on the phone cuts their deadline to a mere 5 minutes before going dead. While Luca paces in pure panic, Serena tears through the dusty room. Her father chose a lighthouse for a reason. It was meant to be seen, her fingers close around the rusted grip of a flare gun. She aims into the northern fog and pulls the trigger, sending a streak of crimson into the night. Luca questions how a simple light could hold off an entire army, but Serena knows Agent Chen is out there. It is a blind gamble. Yet sometimes, when the world backs you to the absolute edge with nothing left to lose, throwing a prayer into the dark is the greatest act of courage you can summon. Time is rapidly bleeding out. Serena fires the final flare just as the heavy doors downstairs splinter apart. The terrifying thud of combat boots pounds up the staircase. Luca lifts his shaking weapon, pleading with Serena to abide. Instead, she anchors her feet right beside his, fully ready to go down swinging. The first act hitman breaches the doorway, but before a single shot echoes, the wail of sirens rips the fog apart. The mercenaries freeze in sudden dread. Serena watches as blue and red lights paint the dark, an ocean of federal cruisers flooding the lot. Agent Chen steps into the headlights, raising a megaphone to announce the end of the line. True loyalty is refusing to let the people you care about face the firing squad alone, no matter how incredibly grim the ending appears. The guns weigh their options: die on a dirty staircase or drop their weapons. The clatter of steel hitting the floorboards echoes through the room. Serena feels her knees give way, sliding down the wall as her adrenaline evaporates. Agent Chen drags herself up the steps with a tired smile, asking if the flare show was necessary. When Luca marvels at the backup, Chen smirks. Promised the government the biggest political takedown of the decade, and they will break every speed limit to arrive. With a shaking hand, Serena surrenders the drive. Chen checks her device, eyes narrowing at the reality of the files. Unchecked greed can build towering castles of power, but never forget that a single spark of truth is enough to burn a corrupt empire entirely to the ground. Let us look at this piece, shall we? Chen softly suggests her father's final gift might balance out the dark life he lived. Serena just stares at the floor. The wound of his betrayal still far too fresh. Outside, sirens pierce the fog as the hitmen are shoved to the armored cruisers. Chen lays out the grim path forward: safe houses, court dates, and a life in hiding. But Serena points a trembling finger at the arrested men, demanding the name of the puppet master who sent them. Later, sitting in a sterile interrogation room, Serena lays every brutal secret bare to an investigator. The words taste like ash in a mouth, but look, constantly running from your pain only gives it power. Staring your darkest trauma directly in the eye is the brutal, necessary first step toward reclaiming your peace. The agent locks Serena inside a hotel room, and she stands under the scalding shower, numbly watching the dirt and blood spiral down the drain. Exhaustion finally drags her to sleep, pulling her into a dream. She sees her father, not the mobster, but the warm man who held her hand at the lighthouse, promising the light would guide her home. Waking up in the dark, the painful realization hits her. Heather, he had been lying from the start, coming to terms with the fact that your fondest memories were built on a foundation of lies is a truly devastating grief. A knock shatters the silence. Chen walks in, her face pale in the glow of an open laptop. The dominoes are falling. With a grim look, Chen turns the screen toward the bed. They have finally put a face to the mechanical voice that ordered their deaths. The screen displays Victoria Strand. She is a phantom of the underworld, pulling the darkest strings for decades. The files could bury her forever, but as she has vanished into the shadows. The tension snaps when Chen's phone vibrates. Serena watches the agent turn pale. It is a photograph. Luca, bruised and unconscious, bound to a steel chair. Beneath the image, a text demands the drive for his life. 12 hours, Serena's lungs seize. Luca was supposed to be in tight federal protection. Chen's voice is a defeated whisper as she admits they have a traitor in their ranks. The most lethal knife in the back is never held by your enemy, but by the person standing right beside you. A dangerous calm settles over Serena. The time for running is over. They will get him back, whatever the cost. Stick with me here, because this is where everything shifts. And Serena locks eyes with the agent, and the terrified girl completely fades away. Ice replaces her fear. She states they cannot kick down doors blindly. They have 12 agonizing hours to hunt. Bypassing the corrupted agency, Chen assembles a small, fiercely loyal rogue team. They spend the night ripping through Strand's financial shadows until they find it.
An abandoned
The ambush is practically glowing in neon lights. Chen warns it is a suicide trap, but Serena just pulls a heavy Kevlar vest over her shoulders and smiles a strangely broken smile. "Let her wait," she whispers. "You see, sometimes the only way to disarm a deadly trap is to walk directly into the open jaws of the beast and dare it to bite." The strike team orders Serena to stay back while they breach the perimeter. She offers a quiet nod, a perfect lie wrapped in silence. As dawn creeps over the city, the steel doors of the warehouse are blown off their hinges. The squad floods the empty room, tactical lights piercing the gloom. The shouting dies into a haunting silence. The warehouse is a ghost town. No gunman, no criminal boss. Just a folding chair in the center of the concrete floor, holding an open laptop. Chen approaches the glowing screen, her stomach dropping. It is a live feed. Luca sits bound and bleeding, with Victoria Strand standing casually behind him, the cold of a pistol pressed firmly against his temple. You can spend your life trying to perfectly outsmart the devil, but darkness always has another twisted trick waiting for you. Serena shoves past the agents, yelling into the mic that Strand and would execute him regardless. Through the grainy feed, the crime boss obs a chillingly polite smile. She promises that if she gets the drive, his end will be fast. If not, she has instruments to stretch his agony over several days. Pure, cold cruelty. Despite the gun resting against his skull, Luca lifts his bruised face as finds the camera's din. He is choosing death over a single shake of his head.
Victoria's watch starting a second countdown.
Chen steps back, passing the impossible burden to Serena. The seconds bleed away. 20, 15. True loyalty isn't just standing by someone's side. It is looking directly down the barrel of a gun and being entirely willing to bear the heavy suffering as your own. 10 seconds left on the devil's clock. Serena reaches into her pocket, holding the drive to the glare of the lens. 5 seconds. Her voice doesn't waver as she demands a meeting place. With 2 seconds to spare, Victoria's cruel smile widens, instructing her to bring it to the Eastern Pier in 10 minutes. Come alone, or the boy dies. The feed goes dead. Chen grabs Serena's shoulder, pleading with her not to walk into a graveyard. But the trembling girl is gone. Serena brushes the agent's hand away, eyes burning with quiet fury, and calmly asks the tactical team a training decoy. She is flipping the script. Listen, when your enemy invites you to a rigged game, you don't play by their twisted rules. You rewrite the board entirely. She slides the fake plastic into her jacket, leaving the truth hidden away. Serena refuses to walk away from the wreckage. She demands a wire, wanting a hidden microphone threaded directly into her Kevlar vest. She wants this arrogant boss on tape, conveying every ugly sin. Her father gave 15 years to build this case, and she carries the final nails. Chen runs an audio check, her voice heavy with the warning: if this goes sideways, the feds will swarm the pier. Serena walks out there alone. The fog peels back, revealing Victoria at the edge, untouchable, with a gun in her hand. Then there is Luca, tied to a rusted post, beaten, bloody, but burning with fierce rage. Serena raises the fake drive to the pale moonlight. The truth is the sharpest blade you will ever carry, but it means absolutely nothing unless you have just sheer courage to finally draw it. Serena tosses the decoy drive across the cold concrete. Victoria snatches it from the air with a smug grin, pocketing the prize. Serena demands Luca, but Victoria responds with a cruel threat. Disappear forever, she orders, or she will hunt down every soul Serena loves. Yet, Serena holds her ground against the killer. She calmly warns Victoria that her underworld empire is already burning. The agent's moving in right now. But Victoria remains frozen in her cold pride, tragically convinced her wealth can rebuild the ashes. She raises her weapon to finish the job, calling Serena a loose end. Serena simply closes her eyes. We have seen this exact tragic flaw before. Arrogance acts as a heavy blindfold. It stops you from seeing the absolute ruin waiting at your own feet until it is much too late to step away. A single gunshot shatters the morning quiet. Serena, bracing for the end, feels absolutely nothing. She opens her eyes to find the world has completely tilted. Victoria stands frozen, a dark red flower blooming across her chest. The untouchable boss drops heavily to her knees, gasping her final breath before collapsing. Standing in the settling smoke is Natalia. The broken orphan girl grips a heavy pistol in her trembling hands, whispering that she already killed one monster, so what does another matter? Serena rushes forward, desperately untying Luca as police sirens finally flood the pier. Luca looks up through his deep bruises, offering an exhausted, genuine smile. She came back for him. The truth is, sometimes, the absolute quietest souls are the ones carrying the most profound courage when the world around them falls apart. The heavy steel slips from Natalia's trembling fingers, but she breaks down, begging to know how many souls she must take before the nightmare ends. Agent Chen steps forward, her hardened exterior melting into a rare gentleness. She embraces the girls, the promelings. The violence is finally over. The sun climbs higher over a sea of yellow crime tape. The life Serena once knew is just ash blowing in the cold wind. She asks what comes next, and Chen vows to tear the syndicate down legally. Serena looks over at Luca and Natalia. They are three broken people, bonded by the darkest corners of the human experience. Serena whispers that they will rebuild together. You cannot change the wildfire that burned your old world down, but you always get to choose exactly who you sit with among the ashes. The harbor fog lifts, and they walk away from that blood-stained pier, leaving the darkness behind. Weeks drag by, bringing us to a sterile federal building, smelling of bleach and burnt coffee. Serena sits behind thick bulletproof glass, staring at towering boxes of evidence. Her father, Ace, shadowy empire is neatly boxed up, ready to ruin dozens of corrupt lives. After 3 grueling weeks of federal interrogations, Agent Chen pushes through the heavy door. Her leg is firmly braced, a lingering scar of the chaos, but she carries the quiet strength of a victor. She looks Serena in the eye and delivers the news. 47 federal indictments just came down. The entire underground network is collapsing fast. The truth always comes to collect its heavy debts, in the end, no matter how much dirt you try to pile on top of it. The federal halls buzz with the thrill of the massive bust. Serena only mutters a hollow response, gripping a cup of cheap coffee just to feel some warmth. Agent Chen softly suggests her father would be incredibly proud. Instantly, the air in the room freezes. Serena's eyes snap upward, cold and deadened. She sharply reminds the agent that the man faked his own death for 6 agonizing months. He orchestrated violent crimes under the twisted guise of protecting his blood. Serena makes her boundary absolutely clear. She is finished chasing the approval of a manipulative ghost. She was once a nurse sworn to do no harm, but now she is the architect of a mafia downfall. You can never let the toxic shadows of Yardelfidly dictate who you are. Some just have to pick up the blade and sever the rope yourself. Serena's transformation is a heavy thing to witness. She went from checking heart monitors to dismantling a crime syndicate. There is no going back to the hospital shift. Chen slides a folder across the table, revealing a full federal escape plan. Take the payout, adopt a new identity, and disappear. It is the easy way out. But Serena pushes the paperwork back, her closet as iron. She refuses to hide. She wants to stay exactly who she is. 2 doors down, Lucas sits in a cold interrogation room, playing a tense game with the agents. They cannot decide if he is a star witness or a stone-cold monster. He carries profound sins, yet he was the match that burnt the syndicate down. Running away is just a temporary illusion. True strength is looking the wreckage of your past straight in the eye and claiming your true name. A clean slate is the holy grail for an underworld enforcer. A prosecutor slams an immunity deal onto the metal table, hand over the network, and Luca walks away free. But the air in the room stalls. Luca looks the prosecutor dead in the eyes and firmly rejects the offer. The silence is deafening. With a chilling calm, he admits he did terrible things to survive, to protect Serena, and because he spent 20 years as a weapon, he promises to hand over every single name and hidden graveyard. But he refuses the immunity, fully aware he will rot in a concrete cell. He is voluntarily taking the fall to pay the toll for his bloodstained past. So sometimes, taking total accountability for your darkest sins is the only currency accepted when you are trying to buy back your shattered soul. Look at the burden resting on Luca. He tells prosecutors he is finished outrunning his shadows. If a concrete cell balances the scales, he tells them to lock the door. The suits are speechless, expecting a man begging for a deal. Miles away, the wind bites at Natalia as she stands over her father's grave. The boss built a terrifying empire, but it only bought 2 simple lines on a cheap stone. She whispers to the dirt, confessing she pulled the trigger to save his targets. But in the quiet cemetery, she wonders if she is a hero or just a new monster. Life is profoundly messy. Sometimes doing the right thing feels identical to committing an unforgivable sin. We must accept these painful gray areas because pure good and pure evil are often just comforting myths. The cold granite offers no comfort. Natalia crouches down, tracing the letters of her father's name. She whispers to the earth, declaring she is no longer his silent pawn. He spent her life moving her like a piece on a blood-stained chessboard, but now she is flipping the board. She promises to spill every buried secret, every corrupt deal, and every crooked name on his payroll. She will burn his legacy to ash and walk away free. But before leaving the grave, she confesses an agonizing truth. She admits she genuinely loved him, And honestly, she despises herself for it.
The human heart is tragic,
Clinging to the very hands that leave the deepest bruises.
severing toxic family ties feels exactly like tearing out your own soul.
But it is the only way you will ever find the space to build a new life. The trial that will define a decade opens on a bleak Monday morning. The courthouse is an ocean of cameras and citizens hungry for the fall of an empire. Inside, the prosecution executes a surgical strike of evidence. By the fourth day, Serena takes the stand in a plain grey suit looking almost invisible. Then she brings the heavy hammer down. She calmly details the hitman, her father's twisted life, and the syndicate's cold machinery. The defense lawyers bare their fangs, trying to paint her as a greedy accomplice living on blood money. But Serena never flinches. She just lets the unvarnished truth ring through the silent room. Holding your ground while people attack your character is a rare superpower. When you lay your ghosts on the table and have nothing left to hide, no one can break you. Serena admits her ignorance, but her voice turns to steel, swearing she never would have accepted that blood money. Stepping down, a massive weight lifts from her shoulders. Later, Luca walks into the courtroom in a borrowed suit, looking like a caged tiger under the lights. He corroborates every detail of her story. When the defense asks why anyone should trust a confessed hitman, Luca offers a dark smirk. He tells the room not to trust him at all, just the massive paper trail. It is a devastating blow. Then Natalia takes the oath. The boss's own daughter drops the final hammer, exposing every midnight meeting she witnessed from the shadows of her childhood home. We cannot rewrite the darkness of where we came from, but we always possess the power to shatter the toxic cycles of a bloodline and step into the light. Let us step into that quiet, heavy courtroom together. You and I know these stories never end clean. Natalia takes the stand, and her childhood illusion shatters. She speaks with a hollow voice, describing the agonizing split in her soul. How do you love the father who held your hand while knowing he ordered executions for dinner? She built a phantom to survey, but phantoms always fade. 6 weeks later, the gavel strikes. 43 men go away. The syndicate turns to ash. But as Serena watches the late broadcast, she feels absolutely nothing. The talking heads cannot resurrect the dead. Here is the bitter truth. Legal justice is a necessary thing, but it will never glue your shattered soul back together. That quiet healing is a lonely road you have to walk all by yourself. The breaking news flashes across the screen, but it changes absolutely nothing in Serena's apartment. It does not wash away her father's towering gallies or anchor her shattered spirit. Before Chen arrives, carrying the heavy weight of reality. Face the judge tomorrow. He is looking at 5 years in a concrete box, all because he rejected full immunity. Serena shakes her head, calling it a foolish, noble suicide. The morning light finds them in a suffocating courtroom, staring up at a judge with tired eyes who has heard every pathetic excuse this city can invent. It brings us to a quiet, necessary truth. True accountability will always demand a pound of flesh, but that paying that painful debt is the only way you will ever sleep peacefully again. The judge stares a hole straight through Luga, reading his violent sins out loud. She dissects how he kept a corrupt machine turning while Luga stands there swallowing every bitter word. She notes his rejected immunity, offering a rare sliver of respect for a man willing to burn for his crimes. The gavel drops on 3 years or 18 months with good behavior. As the heavy doors open to take him away, he finds Serena in the crowd. One silent nod passes between them. A whole lifetime spoken without a single sound. Later that night, Serena stands in the doorway of her father's dark apartment. Dust dances in the moonlight. You can run from the ghosts of your past for as long as you want, but eventually you have to box them up and lock the door forever. Serena moves through the quiet rooms like a ghost, treating her childhood home like a crime scene. Deep in a closet, her fingers brush against a forgotten box. Inside, she finds faded photographs of a man who actually knew how to smile, resting beneath a sealed envelope marked for her 18th birthday. A final confession from the grave. She tears it open, hands shaking. His messy ink spills out a pathetic truth. He wanted to confess his sins and expose the blood on his hands, but he was simply too terrified to watch her heart break. So he chose the shadow of a lie. You and I need to recognize the tragic reality of human weakness here. Shielding the people you love with deceit is just a slow poison. Real devotion requires the courage to bear the ugly truth, no matter the cost. The ink fades out with an apology for the deception, but a stubborn refusal to apologize for keeping her safe. So Serena traces the jagged letters, and the paradox finally clicks. The ruthless king of the underworld was just a terrified father, paralyzed by his own love. Humans are agonizingly complicated like that. As the sky bleeds purple, she drops the keys on the counter and drives to the silent cemetery. She sinks into the damp grass beside his heavy stone. Staring down at the earth, she whispers into the twilight that she does not forgive him. Listen, you and I both know she does not have to. You never owe anyone absolution just because they share your blood or rest in the ground. You can honor your grief while fiercely protecting your own peace. The bitter autumn wind whips through the graveyard as Serena finally unloads her heavy resentment. She tells the cold soil that his orchestrated death was the true murder, because it killed their trust ever. She understands the desperate instinct to shield her, but the lack of respect cuts straight to her core. He never let her choose her own fate. With a trembling hand, she presses his final letter deep into the dirt. She leaves him with a haunting goodbye, praying he finds the quiet rest he never earned in life. Then, she turns her back on the dead and walks away. 6 months fade into the rearview mirror as she parks outside a battered brick building in a forgotten part of town. Walking away from your ruins does not mean you erase them. It just means you refuse to let them bury you. A flickering neon sign now hangs above the steel door, reading, "The Lighthouse Foundation." It is a brilliant, beautiful twist of fate. Chen had pushed Serena to take her father's blood money and build a sanctuary for the collateral damage of the underworld. The very place where she nearly bled out on the floor is now pulling drowning souls back to the shore. Nalia designed the softly lit counseling rooms inside, staffing them with survivors who kept their own jagged scars. Serena is not the one sitting in the therapist chairs, but she is the steady heart keeping sanctuary alive. She is saving with iod scalpel. It is a profound irony. Sometimes the absolute demons, most agonizing wounds you carry are the exact tools you need to pull someone else out of the dark. Natalia walks through carrying 2 steaming coffers. With a sharp chop of red hair and a steady gaze, she is a ghost of the trembling girl who once pulled the trigger on her own father. She runs through the morning agenda before dropping a quiet bomb. Chen is driving upstate to see Luca in maximum security, and he offered them a seat. A dark laugh escapes Natalia at the absurdity of visiting the man who once held them captive. Serena just stares at the wall. She thinks of Luca, locked in a steel cage, paying the ultimate toll for a promise he kept in the shadows. She breathes in and agrees to go. True forgiveness is a complicated beast. It is not about erasing the violent history, but choosing to witness the fragile humanity buried underneath all that wreckage. There is nothing quite as suffocating as the shadow of a maximum security prison. It is an ocean of grey concrete and razor wire built to crush the human spirit. They walk into the sterile visiting room, and there he is. Stripped of his tailored suits and lethal reputation, Lucas sits in faded prison orange. But those dark, calculating eyes have not dulled one bit. He freezes when he sees Serena. The air thickens with the memory of gunfire and blood. Serena asks how he is surviving the isolation, and he gives a hollow shrug. Then, he looks dead at Natalia and asks how she is coping with the ghost of her father. It is a jarring, brutal honesty, but you and I understand how trauma works. When you have crawled through the fires of hell together, you do not need to pretend anymore.
Question that would shatter a normal conversation, but Natalia does not flinch. She confesses that night is alive, while other day is the only reason she can breathe.
Luca nods slowly, recognizing that specific brand of darkness. When Chen mentions the new foundation they built from the ashes, a rare, genuine smile cracks across Luca's tired face. For one strange hour, these damaged Subianzols just sit and talk about ordinary life, yeah. As the harsh buzzer echoes through the hall, Serena leans forward. She thanks him for holding the line when her world shattered. Luca shakes his head, whispering that she saved herself. It proves something beautiful. Sometimes the most shattered people around you are the very ones who teach you how to build an unbreakable fortress. 2 heavy years pass, leaving a trail of quiet, hard-fought healing. Picture Serena standing in the bright spotlight at a massive criminal justice symposium. Her heart hammers against her ribs, but her voice never shakes. She grips the microphone and silences the room. "My name is Serena Vale," she begins, "and 2 years ago my father died. Only he did not." She lays bare the fake death and her violent descent into the criminal underworld. But she refuses to glorify the monsters. She is there to speak for the collateral damage, the families who realize they have been sleeping next to a stranger. It is a raw, bleeding truth. You cannot choose your bloodline, and you cannot erase the trauma they carve into you. But you alone hold the power to forge those broken pieces into a shield. She tells the crowd that guilt and innocence are never a simple shade of black or white. True redemption is not about convenient amnesia. It is about deciding who you will become after the fire burns your life to ash. The room erupts in a deafening wave of applause. Later, in the quiet hallway, Chen approaches with a plain envelope. Inside is a single sheet of paper. From Here we go. He writes that the state considers him a free man, but a soldier with his history never escapes his ghosts. He is leaving the city forever. Stick with me on this final thought. Sometimes the only way to truly reclaim your shattered soul is to pack your bags, turn your back on the streets that broke you, and disappear into the unknown to start over again. Years later, Serena sits quietly, tracing the ink on a letter from Luca. He thanks her for not hating him after the vendetta ended. He confesses she grew into something stronger than the terrified girl he first met. He finally figured out what keeps his soul human. It is witnessing people choose kindness when revenge is so much easier. Serena folds the paper. When Chen asks if she will write back, she stays silent. Perhaps it is best to let those ghosts rest. Later, standing in her apartment, she thinks about the doctor she used to be compared to the survivor she is now. We can all learn from this. True growth changes you so deeply that your past self feels like a stranger. Embracing the death of your old identity is the painful price of finally moving forward. Serena opens her notebook, letting heavy thoughts spill onto the page. She frankly questions if she even qualifies as a good person anymore. During the conflict, she made cold choices a pure heart would entirely reject. Yet, she is still fighting to build a life with real purpose. 5 years after that nightmare, she stands at the Mariners Point Lighthouse, now a quiet museum. She climbs to the glass room, the exact spot where her father's darkest lies were laid bare. The freezing ocean wind hits her face, bringing a simple, grounding truth. No matter how violently your past mistakes haunt you, if you keep walking through the fire and insist on doing good, you will eventually find your way back to peace. The quiet wind is broken by a familiar voice. It is Natalia Init. The trembling hostage from Naples is long gone, replaced by a strong, grounded woman. She knew exactly where Serena would be on the anniversary of the day. Their lives derailed. They lean against the cold railing, watching tourists laugh on the beach. Normal life marched on, washing away the blood of their Mafia war. Natalia turns and asks the absolute heaviest question. If she could rewind the clock, would she undo the damage? Serena lets the brutal cost of the last 5 years wash over her, finally exhaling a quiet no. Going back means staying blind. The lesson here is hard but vital. Facing a brutal, agonizing truth will always be better than living comfortably inside a beautiful manufactured lie. Let us unpack this emotional madness together, you and I. Standing on that balcony, Serena thinks about the ultimate betrayal. Her father, the man who shaped her moral compass, was living a criminal double life. She was fed lies since childhood. Yet, looking out at the crashing waves, she actually smiles. It is a broken, heavy smile, completely accepting the ashes of her past. She speaks a profound truth aloud. An ugly, bleeding reality will always serve your soul better than a warm deception. The two survivors linger until the sun finally drowns in the ocean, putting the chaos to rest. As the sky turns dark, Natalia lightly bumps her shoulder. To go. Chen is waiting for them at a restaurant with major news, and for the first time in years, it is the good kind. They step out of the cold into a warm restaurant. Chen sits in a corner, pouring dark wine from a half-empty bottle. Before they even sit, she drops a staggering bombshell. The final guilty verdicts for the syndicate just landed. After 20 years of hunting monsters, the mob war is officially over. Then comes the massive twist. Chen raises her glass and announces she is handing in her federal badge. She is drained from fighting and wants to join the foundation to heal broken people. The lesson here is inspiring. Sometimes, laying down your sword and walking away from a toxic war is your greatest victory. Right? Serena and Natalia share a look of earned brotherhood. They welcome her to the team, spending the rest of the night drinking and laughing like normal people for finally at peace. The dead streets swallow the sound of their footsteps. Stepping into the chill, Natalia drops a heavy truth. They are a family now. The very ghosts who once kidnapped Serena, pulling her into the underworld to their utter one, are now her chosen blood. Chen gives a bitter laugh, joking that their existence is completely unhinged. But think about how life actually works. Sometimes the exact people who broke your world are the only humans who can help you rebuild it. They hold each other tight in an embrace forged in hellfire. Later, driving home with the wind on her face, Serena studies the skyline. She knows this city is a graveyard of mobsters, but good people can still breathe here. Back in her quiet apartment, she holds a warm cup of tea, letting the morning light wash over her tired, healing soul. Her phone vibrates against the table. An unknown number flashes. It is Luca, the top syndicate enforcer, messaging to say he is proud of her. Serena stares at the screen, typing and deleting her reply 5 times before sending a simple thank you. His response is tragic but true. He says she did the heavy lifting for him. He just kept her breathing long enough to finish the job. A hitman becoming her truest protector. It is a heavy life lesson to never judge the shadows too quickly. Sometimes the monster in the dark is the one standing guard at your door. Serena smiles, thinking of the flash drive that tore down her father's brutal empire. She is no longer an innocent nurse. She is a battle-tested survivor. Her scars run deep, but those wounds are exactly what make her unbreakable today. The foundation opens at 9. Serena grabs the worn notebook she's kept close for 5 years. Pay close attention here, because this entry changes everything.
She presses the pen down and fully owns that she is the daughter of a criminal. She admits to doing violent things for the right reasons, no longer caring if the world calls her a hero or a villain.
If she only wants to pull light into the dark.
This fact. The history of your family does not have to be your prison. You hold the pen.
You write your own ending. Staring at wakingly Sing City, she sees herself clearly. She is an ordinary woman dragged into the crushing chaos of the Mafia, who somehow managed to claw her way out of the grave and step back into the sun. She survived the absolute worst of the underworld, and now she helps others escape. Grabbing her keys, she steps outside, blending into the morning rush. But underneath that calm exterior beats the heavy heart of a warrior who outlived a Mafia war. Walking toward the foundation, returning to the former kidnappers who became her chosen family, she feels a profound peace. It is not a shallow joy that ignores the past, but hard, earned acceptance. Listen to me carefully. Scars never mean you are broken. They are the receipts of your survival, the undeniable proof that you earned your tomorrow. She pushes open the heavy glass doors. Inside, Natalia is already waiting by the desk, pouring bitter black coffee and laying out the thick case files for the new battles ahead. Natalia looks up from the files with a genuine smile, asking if Serena is ready for another round. Serena answers without hesitation. She is as ready as she will ever be. Just like that, they step back into the trenches. They are building lighthouses in the grittiest corners of the city, guiding broken souls back to shore. Their trauma will never fade, but they have made themselves whole. We have walked this dark road with them from the start. If there is one thing to carry away, it is this. You do not need a spotless past to build a meaningful future. You just need the courage to keep walking forward. For a crew born in mob violence, finding peace is the ultimate act of rebellion. It is a tragic story of revenge beautifully buried under the heavy, healing weight of true redemption.